Hello and welcome to Unsportsmanlike Conduct, the show where two British brothers talk all things NFL. I'm your host, Dom Corbs, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Corbs. Nick, this is episode 2. How are you feeling?
Feeling good, Dom. You know, different day, different episode. Excited to get back to it.
I see you've got a new nice t-shirt on there, Nick.
Yeah, no, it's two sizes too small. It's perfect.
Basically, we're recording 2 episodes on the same day, but New wanted to change his outfits, make it look like we're doing it on different days.
Well, it's kind of ruined the whole allure now, but yeah, fine.
Okay, so on this episode, we are doing our take on worst to first contenders. So what that means is we were going to do the teams that finished last in their division, who are going to finish first in their division this year.
Yeah.
We looked at the potential options, and the only realistic possibility to finish first after finishing last year is the Cincinnati Bengals. So instead, what we're doing is we're doing teams who finished last to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we're also taking the Bengals out of the pool just because they went 9-8. They only need one more win to make the playoffs, and they've got Joe Burrow back. So it just seems way too easy and way too cheap to put them in. So we're clear that before New starts us off with his first selection, we've done it this way. We've done it by doing one lock, so one that we're very certain is going to finish last and make the playoffs. And we've also got one long shot, so a team which doesn't have the same odds, but one which we still like the possibility of potentially doing that. So we're clear to our viewers, the teams that finished last year. In the AFC East, it was the New England Patriots. In the AFC North, it was the Cincinnati Bengals. In the AFC South, it was the Tennessee Titans. In the AFC West, it was the Los Angeles Chargers. In the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. NFC North, Chicago Bears. NFC South, Carolina Panthers. And the NFC West was the Arizona Cardinals. So, Nu, why don't you take us away with your first long shot?
Yeah, so my first lock is the Chicago Bears. And I think this is a pretty easy explanation. I think they just drafted one of, if not the best quarterback prospect in the last decade in Caleb Williams, who can really revolutionize that offense. He can run, he can pass, and as much as I'm a Justin Fields truther, there was a lot needed to do there. And Caleb Williams is a much, much better player than he is. Secondly, their receiver core, I believe, is the number one receiver core in the league. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. Who's that? I understand Keenan Allen's not the player that he once was, but he's still a very good player. DJ Moore, on a very team-friendly contract as well, is a wide receiver one. And Rome Odunze, having just watched the recent Giants HBO behind the off-season series, love Rome Odunze. I'm slightly worried about the Malik Neighbors pick now, but that's a topic for another day. I think they also re-signed Jalen Johnson. I just think that their team last year, I think, was better than their record, and they've only gotten better as a team. The only thing that's holding them back is maybe coaching. I think they should have got rid of their coach. But also this coaching cycle, there wasn't actually that many good options coming through the ranks, I don't think.
Coaching for me, I think, is the question mark around the Chicago Bears. I don't love Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator who was at the Seahawks last year. Obviously, he does get credit for helping out Geno Smith revive his career, but I wasn't blown away by anything I saw in the Seahawks offense. And also, they had 3 good wide receivers last year in, obviously, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And they really struggled to find a way to use all 3 effectively. So I think the Chicago Bears are a really good shout. I'm going to go and see them in London this year at the London games. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Rome Odunze and seeing Caleb Williams spin it. But yeah, the coaching for the Chicago Bears is my concern. And also, Nu, what about the NFC North?
The NFC North is obviously a very tough division. That's why I don't think they're going to go to the first, because I think purely the Packers will take games off them. Maybe even the Vikings will take games off them, and the Lions definitely will. I think that's why I think they'll probably go about 10-7, maybe 11-6. That's why I have them.
The Bears?
Yes.
11. You think the Bears are going to get 11 wins?
I think Caleb Williams obviously is going to be a rookie quarterback, and he's going to make stupid decisions, and he's going to make dumb plays. But I think he can step in and basically be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL almost day one. The things they could do off-platform, there's very few off-platform and out of structure. There's very, very few quarterbacks in the league that can do that. Maybe not even Joe Burrow can make the plays that Caleb Williams can. And even though I think he will need work, and I don't think this is the final iterations of the Bears team, they also have their defense was also elite last year. You have to bear in mind they still have Jalen Johnson, who, in my opinion, is a top 5 corner in the NFL, and they did sign him to a massive contract.
And Montez Sweat,
of course, who was traded from the Commanders last year. So I really like them as a team, and I think they've got a lot of potential, and I think they're quite dynamic, and also they've got DeAndre Swift. I think in every single skill position they have a plus player.
What, the running back with worse vision than Ray Charles?
Oh, no, he's always a good fantasy bet, and I'll be looking to pick him up on the 4th, 5th round,
I think you're right. The Bears have a really good team on paper, like really strong offensively and defensively. The defense, I really like the secondary. They've put a lot of draft capital towards that area in recent years, led by Jalen Johnson, obviously, but the rest of them are really good as well. I think the Bears are a good shout. I'm just worried about the NFC North cannibalizing itself, which I mentioned in the last episode as well. There are 4 good teams there. It's going to be pretty hard to come away with, the majority of the wins against good teams, definitely above average teams. And I just don't know. A rookie quarterback getting 11 wins. That's more than CJ Stroud and the Texans had this year. You think that Caleb Williams is going to do better than CJ Stroud?
I could see them having not as quite as good, but a Ben Roethlisberger Pittsburgh Steelers rookie year when he took them all the way to the Super Bowl. Not quite that level, but
wow, that is some.
But I think they're a new team, new identity, and I think they will have a really, really good year.
That is some high praise, Nu. That is some really high praise. You staked a pretty big claim there with that one. 11-6 for the Chicago Bears.
I think
Easy. All right, fair enough. So obviously for my lock, we've taken the Bengals out of the pool, and comparing my lock to Nu's lock, I can't say I'm too confident about it. I kind of wish I didn't take the Bengals out of the pool now. But I'm gonna lock in the Chargers to make the playoffs, which is I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty bold, and I'm going to hype up a team that gets hyped up every year and never lives up to that hype. But like a toxic ex, it's going to be different this time. So obviously they're in a division with the Chiefs, which is kind of why we phrased the topic of the pod the way we have, because it would completely rule out the Chargers because they're in the division with the Chiefs. But to make the playoffs, they'd need 9 wins, maybe 10 wins. And let's be clear about the Los Angeles Chargers. So they finished 5-12 last year. They were a bad team, absolutely 100%. But they went 0-5 down the stretch. They didn't have Justin Herbert for the last 4 games of the season, and they have a new coach in Jim Harbaugh. So there is a total change. Everything about the Los Angeles Chargers is different this year in terms of coaching and scheme. So I think they are now a much better team than their 5-12 record last year. Talking about teams that have improved, obviously the Bears have, but I think the Chargers, almost addition by subtraction, getting rid of Brandon Staley in itself is a massive upgrade. But then putting in a coach like Jim Harbaugh, who has proven year after year after year to be a very, very good coach, very good head coach, I think this is going to be a new look Chargers team. I'm telling you, this year, Nu, it's going to be different.
I think that's an okay pick. But the issue I have with Harbaugh is I don't think he's a good fit in San Diego. San Diego, wow. LA, to the Chargers. Is that he's a run-first head coach. You saw it with J.J. McCarthy in Michigan. You saw it in the Niners when he was head coaching before with Frank Gore. He's not playing to his team's strengths. And I don't think Joe Alt was a bad pick by any means, but I think running the ball first, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then not focusing on receiver until, Brendan Rice in the 6th, is not going to make your team better. And that's why I'm slightly hesitant about them as a squad.
Okay. Let's address those things. So Jim Harbaugh, you're right, is a run-first coach, as is the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, who was the old offensive coordinator of the Ravens. And last year, the Chargers were 32nd in rushing offense. So they were the worst team at rushing the ball last year in terms of EPA per play. And that is... overnight, that's going to change. Herbert will be asked to finally not do everything himself. Like, how many fourth quarter comebacks? I think I saw a stat where Justin Herbert has like the most fourth quarter comebacks to actually then lose the game in like the final drive or something ridiculous. Like, that's one of the big issues that people have with Justin Herbert, is that he's not clutch in the fourth quarter or whatever. But that's because the team around him is so bad. It's literally Justin Herbert versus the world every single time he goes out there to play. And for once, it's not going to be on his shoulders. And I think that when they do need the quarterback to step up, Justin Herbert is the perfect quarterback to do that. Because in my opinion, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And I know that's a bit of a unhot take these days because people don't like Justin Herbert. Exactly. In terms of physical attributes and what he can do with the football, he's top 5 easily. He can hit that cover 2 hole shot, second to no one in the league, even better than Patrick Mahomes in my opinion. But anyway, parking that, the Joe Alt pick. So I was covering the draft on TalkSport Live, and I said that I couldn't believe that they took Joe Alt. I couldn't believe it. I wanted them to take a receiver every day of the week and twice on Sundays with the 5th overall pick. However, I've now come round to it. I'm a believer in the Joe Alt pick because he's now got 2 bookend tackles for the rest of his career.
Rashawn Slater on the other side is an elite tackle in my opinion. So
exactly, Rashawn Slater on one side, Joe Alt on the other, and that's also going to help with the run game. And the receivers, they're not great. The receivers are actually pretty terrible. But they did take Ladd McConkey in the first round, second round, top of the second. He's not going to be a wide receiver 1 ever. He's not going to, be a Brandon Ayuk or Justin Jefferson or anything like that. But he is going to be that high volume, like quarterback best friend slot receiver who Justin Herbert can, rely on in those money downs, and he will be open when he needs to be. Quentin Johnson, the draft pick from last year, has been benched apparently. So that's addition by subtraction.
He was terrible. He was not a good player.
He was god awful, and of course I drafted him in my dynasty league.
We did.
But the addition of Jesse Minter as well at defensive coordinator, coming from Michigan, which you mentioned with JJ McCarthy as well. Jim Harbaugh has brought over loads of the Michigan staff, and from all accounts, they are amazing at teaching. And Jesse Minter, I think, is going to revolutionize how NFL teams play defense. He's a great teacher. He's big on the blitz. I think the Chargers' defense this year is going to be a lot better as well. And that was part of the problem, is that, take the Jacksonville Jaguars playoff game last year, so not the last playoffs, but the year before, when the Jags came back from like a 30-point deficit. That was on the defense, and that was on bad coaching. And the Chargers have addressed both of those things. So I think, all in all, the Chargers are one of the best, one of the most improved teams in the National Football League. And that is why I think they're going to scrape the playoffs.
Well, also, Dom, I want to ask you this question, because I understand it's slightly different with Jim Harbaugh being an NFL coach before, but we have seen numerous college coaches, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, these greats of college football try to transfer their game to the NFL, and it hasn't worked. Why do you think it'd be different with the Michigan team?
Because, as you said, Jim Harbaugh's already done it in the NFL. So has Greg Roman. Obviously, he's already coached in the NFL. And what I'm hoping for is that Greg Roman specifically has learned from his mistakes in Baltimore, which was not using the passing game like he should do, and should look at actually the Ravens this year with Todd Monken, who came from college and had a lot of success in that Ravens offense. I hope he's looked at that, done some self-scouting, and has realized, okay, I've got a quarterback in Justin Herbert who is absolutely amazing. Yes, we're lacking some elite receiving weapons, but the run game will help the pass game and vice versa. So hopefully, what I'm hoping, because I really do think that Justin Herbert is that good, that they do use him, not as much as the old administration had to. They had to rely on him all the time. But I'm hoping that they're aware of the talent they have on the roster. They're aware of the holes that they also have on the roster, specifically at receiver. And they play to their strengths. And they've got rid of Austin Eckler. He was unhitched the wagon.
He's an old, bald man. He's not a running back.
Oh, God. Okay. That was an ad hominem attack. we want to shy away from those in the pod. But I think they've brought in enough of the Michigan regime, including players as well, like Junior Colston, to really help that transition, particularly on defense and on offense. So I think you've raised a fair point, but I think that the Chargers are going to be, I think they're going to be a rock solid team. This is the thing. I don't think really I think the floor of the Chargers is much higher than it was, essentially. I think the ceiling might not be there. I do think 10 wins might be a bit tricky, but I think they're going to be a good football team. They might not be a great one. It's just a question of how much can the scheme and how much can Justin Herbert and the coaching and all that stuff, how much can their high-end, the high-end elements of that team carry them through the season. And I think they could be a 10-win team. At the absolute ceiling, they could be a 10-win team.
I see that. So, Dom, do you want to give us your long shot now?
You give us yours.
Okay, my long shot is the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, you know what? I love that.
And I think, so I'm going to explain it later, but this all does hinge on Kyler Murray. At the end of the day, I'm going to give a lot of other reasons why I think they're a better team. But if Kyler Murray wants to play Call of Duty Online more than he wants to win an NFL game, this team will not get better.
No, you've not fallen into the meme trap, no.
Well, it's true.
Come on, you're better.
Okay, fine. Let me go through my other reasons first. Okay.
All right, go on.
So first of all, I think the Cardinals absolutely smashed it in this year's draft. I love Marvin Harrison. I know there was some late rises for Malik Neighbors over to be number one. No, Marvin Harrison is an elite wide receiver who can step in and be easily a 1,300, 400-yard receiver out the gates. They also drafted Max Melton, who I was very high on, the cornerback out of Rutgers. I'm sure you were as well, Dom.
Yeah, definitely.
And also Trey Benson, who was a lot of people's number one running backs in the third as well, so got good value out of him. They also improved their O-line massively. They added Jonah Williams from the Bengals and also Parrish Trotter Jr. from last year. They're hoping he can build off that for year two. So I think all of that really makes the Cardinals a very interesting and dynamic offense. And I really think they can make some moves later this season.
I also think a bit like the Bengals, the Cardinals are one of those teams that was only last in their division because their quarterback was injured. Like Kyler Murray didn't play the majority of the season. And they had... I mean, who was that quarterback? Josh Dobbs for a bit,
Dobbs, and then he's like 4 games, just blokes effectively. Yeah,
a bunch of NPCs basically at quarterback, and so by default, Kyler Murray coming back is absolutely massive. The addition of Marvin Harrison Jr. is ginormous. I mean, that wide receiver room has gone from one of the worst in the league to being like a pretty good one with his addition of him. And I also really like the head coach, Jonathan Gannon. I think he got memed at the beginning of last season a bit with the, how much fire do you have in your belly? Did you get the bus or whatever?
There's that dap up of, who's he dapping up? It's so funny. But he looks like a freak.
He really had the Cardinals playing above their means, I think. Like, they were a really scrappy team. Like, they played the Cowboys pretty close, I think, or did they get blown? Either way, they played some good teams a lot closer than they had any reason to. And I think that is a really good yardstick of a head coach, personally, that, do you have a bad team playing well, really? And Kyler Murray, I think, is also a massively over-hated quarterback, which is why I push back about your meme thing, because I think, like, he's really good. He's a really good quarterback. Like, I'd put him in the top 10. I put him at 10.
That's crazy. That is crazy word. You do not believe that. You do not believe that. And this is my pick, and I don't believe it.
In the video, I did a TikTok video at Dom Corbs NFL. By the way, go follow me. I did a video where I ranked the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL under the pretense of who I would like for my team for the next 3 years. So to be fair, like, Aaron Rodgers wasn't on that list.
Yeah.
Nor was Matthew Stafford, just because he's so injured. But so I put Kyler Murray at 10 in that remit, and I think he's really good. Like, he's got a really accurate deep ball. He's a good rushing threat. He can open up the run game. Which, by the way, the run game in Arizona was really, really good last year. Really good.
And it's only going to get better with Trey Benson.
Exactly. And Kyler Murray healthy as well. Like, he's a threat in the run game. They obviously didn't want to use him straight away in that regard when he was coming back from injury. James Conner, was that the running back?
Yeah,
James Conner. He had like the third highest yards per carry last year out of any running back in the league. It was like 4.0. Like, it was the Cardinals' running game was really, really slept on. Obviously, the receiving game wasn't quite there. Greg Dortch is getting a lot of targets, and I know he's a fan favorite. Dortch the torch. But I think the Kyler Murray coming back, Trey Benson being added, Marvin Harrison Jr. being added. The defense needs some work, but the offense, I think, is really, really set.
And also, I think Trey McBride at tight end.
Oh,
I think it's a really underrated piece. He had 870 yards last year, completely under the radar. Before researching the Cardinals, I was like, oh yeah, Trey McBride. I remember him from the drafts a couple of years back. He's actually performing at a good level and only going to get higher as that safety blanket for Kyler.
That's a great shot. The Trey McBride pick from you, that's a really good one then. That's a really good one. I like that. So my long shot. This is very bold. Okay, if you thought my Chargers one was bold, then block your ears for this one. And this could be in just episode 2 alone. Well, actually, from just episode 2, this could be the best take of the season or the worst. but I seriously think the Carolina Panthers have a shot.
Oh, no. I knew you were going to say the Panthers.
Okay, just...
Paddy, clip that.
So trust the process. Okay, so it's in the NFC, right? Which is much weaker than the AFC. So you only really need 9 wins. The Packers made it in with 9 wins last year. I think 10 wins for the Panthers is too far. I think that's too far. I've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. Yeah. Double-digit wins after the season they had is too much. But 9, it's not likely, but it's also not impossible.
Okay.
Hang on, hear me out.
I can see why it's not impossible.
Let me cook. Okay, so Bryce Young was in an impossible situation last year. He had an offensive line which couldn't block. You couldn't watch a Panthers game without Bryce Young being on the floor, being swamped by defensive linemen in like 2.5 seconds. It was absolutely untenable for him behind that offensive line, frankly. And you pair that with the wide receiver core that he had in DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, and Adam Thielen, and you've got, I would say, the perfect storm of a terrible rookie quarterback season. You've got a bad offensive line and receivers that can't separate. So DJ Chark, so per ESPN Analytics, DJ Chark was 143rd in open score, and Jonathan Mingo was 152nd. That is 2 of the 3 starting Panthers wide receivers. The other one was Adam Thielen, who, by the way, played very well, but is not your number one weapon, or you do not want him to be your number one weapon at like 33 years of age.
That sounds like our Britball stats. Those are not NFL receivers.
So, no, they were 143rd and 152nd. Guess what last place was?
194th.
153. So,
who is? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head. So, DJ Chark and Jonathan Mingo were, by all accounts, 2 of the worst separators in the league. So you've got a rookie quarterback with an offensive line that cannot block and wide receivers that cannot separate. You have nowhere to throw the ball at that point. You've got nowhere to throw the ball. Frank Reich also, he wanted CJ Stroud by all accounts. That was the owner, David Tepper, stepping in to draft Bryce Young there. Because Reich wants those tall pocket passing quarterbacks, which Young was. That was the rumors before the draft, and it has basically been confirmed afterwards by various reporters. And so not only did Young have a terrible offensive situation, but really he had a coach who didn't really want him. And you could tell that. Like, Young is a small quarterback. That does come with issues. I like Kyler Murray. I like Baker Mayfield. But you have to offset the issue of their height in some way. And Frank Reich did not do that. Now, the reason why I believe in them, that was recapping last year. They've now got a new head coach, Dave Canales from the Buccaneers, who I really, really, really believe in. He revived Baker Mayfield's career, coincidentally also a smaller quarterback who does have issues throwing over the middle at times. He actually had the most batted passes in the league last year, Baker Mayfield. He's got 2 new receivers, Diontae Johnson, who, over the last 2 years now, has been the highest, has got the highest open score per ESPN Analytics. So he is the exact opposite, mercifully, of what DJ Chark and Jonathan Mingo were. And he's also got Xavier Legette. To be fair, he does kind of fit into that Jonathan Mingo mold a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say so. I like Legette a lot. I was higher than him than you were, but he's he's 6'4", 250. Like, he's a big guy, but he's not a route run. He's not someone that creates separation.
See, I
don't quite see the scheme fit for them, to be honest.
I don't disagree. I think someone like a Lad McConkey type would have been a really good fit there. But
I agree.
Xavier Legette, though, when I was watching him, I thought I was going to see someone that couldn't separate and didn't have an advanced route tree and etc. And he wasn't asked to do that much in terms of route running in South Carolina, but he was able to separate. Like, he's a really good athlete. He's got the size, speed, and I know that the NFL is full of size, speed athletes, and that is a lot harder to work with in the NFL when everyone's much more athletic. But I do believe in Xavier Legette. He doesn't have to be that separator. Diontae Johnson is going to be the one who's going to be separating and is going to be the number one target. But Xavier Legette as an explosive threat, I think, in terms of like jet sweeps or someone that can take a slant to the house or someone that can run a dig deep down the field and convert that to a touchdown. I think that is going to be the guy, and I think he complements Diontae Johnson's skill set really nicely. So I like what they've got there as a 1-2 kind of thunder and lightning punch with those 2 receivers.
I think in the screen game and stuff like that, it can be very useful.
Exactly. And they still have Adam Thielen, who, for all his flaws, really did step up last year and is a decent slot option. He's not gonna blow anyone away. He's not gonna run past anyone. He's not gonna cook someone off the line anymore. But as a third option, as someone that he needs to just like dump it off to, you'll take it, right? And then the 2 new offensive linemen is massive as well. So they've added 2 new guards, Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, for big money. Robert Hunt from Seattle and Robert Hunt from the Dolphins and Damian Lewis from the Seahawks. That will fix the interior of the offensive line, which for a lot
of money though.
A lot of money. But it's I see it as money which is helping your first overall pick actually play well. Which it is cheaper in the long run than going back to draft being bad, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's an investment of money. I agree, it costs them a lot of money, but it's investment. And also with the smaller quarterback, you need that interior of the offensive line to be rock solid, because that is what he's trying to see over. If your offensive lineman are being walked back into you as a smaller quarterback, you just cannot make the throws over the middle. It completely takes out a massive chunk of the field. So that is a big problem, and I'm glad they addressed it. Ike Ekwonu also at tackle. He needs to remember how to play football again. He was pretty terrible at points last year. He did kind of pick it up towards the end of last season, which was good, but he needs to start the season well this time, because you cannot have, as a quarterback going into your second year, quite underconfident with everything that's happened, you cannot be worrying about your left tackle getting you blown up essentially a couple seconds after the snap. But also something that I think is really something that almost annoys me with when we're discussing young prospects like Bryce Young is that when they're elite in college, which Bryce Young was, he was elite at a college like Alabama. He didn't play for BYU. He didn't play for Wyoming. He played for Alabama, one of the best college teams in the country. He was elite in that scenario. We should trust that ability, I think. Obviously, that busts exist in the NFL. We've seen it with, Zach Wilson. But again, I think it's slightly different. There are busts in the NFL, don't get me wrong. But Bryce Young, I still trust his ability. A lot of people act like when these players join the NFL, they've never played the game before. And we saw in Bryce Young, yes, difficulties with his height, but we saw him be a field general, essentially, being able to, command an offense. We saw him
That's a Madden term. That's not a real thing. It is. What does field general really mean?
It just means he's commanding he can command the offense. Like he's cool under pressure. Like we saw him have some amazing plays. Like he had that X factor ability, which is why he was my QB1 in that draft, because he had that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomesian, like he can make a play when all the chips are down. And that is something that I think you can't coach. It's just an innate ability that you have as a quarterback to be able to remain calm, know where your receivers are, know where to roll to, be able to read the defense. And that for me just means that what we saw from Bryce Young, I'm personally putting it down to the situation around him rather than him himself. Now, obviously the concern is that has infected him, basically. That has kind of ruined his development.
Yes. So what I'm worried about is what I see some similarities with, not exactly, is Josh Rosen. Oh. And now Josh Rosen, I don't think was the same caliber player that Bryce Young was coming out of college. But the same thing happens when you're sort of not wanted by a coach and you're sort of thrown to a side and another coach tries to revive your career. It's quite easy sort of to get left by the wayside. And I don't think that will happen to Bryce Young. And I do think Bryce Young's a better player. I'm not buying into all this media hype that Bryce Young's done. If he doesn't have a good year this year, he's off to, the Ryan Leafs, Jamarcus Russells of history. I don't believe that at all. But Dave Canales really, really has to explicitly put his trust in him. There is no failsafe after Bryce Young.
But that's why I really like the hiring, because he revived Baker Mayfield, a quarterback who was at the Panthers, who has struggled, has been a bit of a journeyman. That was the last gasp of Baker Mayfield's career. That was it. That was the last chance saloon for Baker. And he played really well. He won a playoff game.
Yes. They still went 9-8, I think they went.
Yeah, they went 9-8. They won a playoff game. They beat the Eagles.
Yeah, so he revolutionized. They didn't revolutionize, but he reinvigorated Mayfield's career. But the team as a whole wasn't that good. They were a pretty standard NFL team.
What, the Bucs?
Yeah. And I don't think Dave Canales in another coaching cycle, I don't think would have gotten that head coaching job.
See, I don't know. I'm a big Dave Canales believer personally. I think what he did with that offense, with an aging Mike Evans, with a Baker Mayfield who nobody wanted. He was picked up off the street. They're still trying to find an identity after Tom Brady. That team, the Bucs, were meant to be in the first overall pick contention. They were.
Yeah, that is true.
And to have them win a playoff game, make the playoffs, win a playoff game, win the NFC South, that is a massive, massive success of a season. And in my opinion, I put that down to Dave Canales, as the offensive coordinator. And that's why the signing is such a big one for the Panthers, because he's already done it with Baker Mayfield. He's shown, I really like the offensive scheme they ran in Tampa. And I think that with the ability that I know Bryce has, and I think the type of coach that Dave Canales is, I think that will really help Young find his confidence again. Because you're right, like there is an issue of young quarterbacks having their confidence dented and then playing really terribly. They're second guessing themselves. Sam Darnold, from Baker Mayfield's own draft class, I'm seeing ghosts out there. Like, it's really hard to get out of that slump when you're in it. And Bryce Young was deep in it last year. My God, he did not play well. I'm not trying to say that he did. Even in a bad situation, he kind of made it worse in some respects. But the comp that I would give, or the comp that I would give, isn't Josh Rosen, but is Trevor Lawrence. So he had a terrible rookie campaign under Urban Meyer, a bad coach in a bad situation. And in year 2, with a new coach who believed in him, who built a team around him properly, and actually was competent in managing it, he stepped up. And it's interesting with Trevor Lawrence, because I think there's also that kind of hangover with him as well. I think people are still doubting Trevor because, to some extent, of that first year. So it's hard for that hangover to leave you, because it hasn't even really left Trevor yet. But I think Bryce Young, if the Panthers are as good as I think they can be, and again, I think it's 10 wins is way too high.
It's a lot.
But 9, it's the NFC, it's 9. The NFC South is a fairly easy division. The Saints obviously are in there, the Bucks and the Falcons. The Falcons obviously you've got to watch out for a little bit, but hey, I think with 9 wins, I think the Panthers could make it in.
I really like that Trevor Lawrence comparison, actually. I mean, that's very good, well said of you. Like, people saying Trevor Lawrence bust after all of this, but he's now, I think he's overpaid. But you could definitely argue that he is, near that elite tier of quarterbacks. I think he definitely has the talent to do that, and I think Bryce also has that talent. And I think it all comes down to what Dave Canales can do for Bryce Young.
Exactly, and I think he's going to cook this year. So to recap, your lock was
the Chicago Bears. Brief summary of why the Chicago Bears: Caleb Williams, big one, best offensive core in the league, kept defensive talent.
Brilliant. My lock, the Chargers. Look, I believe in them. Calling them a lock might be a bit rich for my blood, but they're just a completely new team, new head coach. I think it's all going to turn around. Your long shot,
Cardinals, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Kyler Murray, effectively, is good draft, good quarterback, like the tight end.
Brilliant. And my long shot, as we know, is the Carolina Panthers. It is a long shot, but I believe in Bryce Young. I believe in Dave Canales. So that wraps up our second episode. Thank you again to everyone that has got this far. We will be doing our third episode on
Rookie Takes.
So we're doing our third episode on Rookie Takes, which will be the offensive Rookie of the Year, defensive Rookie of the Year, and other kind of more broader takes on the rookies, because there are a lot to have. It's a really, really fun rookie class this year. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But until then, see ya.
See ya, Dom.